1, 2, 1, 2. Well, good evening and welcome to St. Laurence Parish Church, the space at St. Laurence here in Ludlow for this very special evening. Yes, this is one of 10 or so Art Connects events that we've run. This is the Art of Dads, and I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. We've got a capacity crowd by COVID terms, as you can see here on the screen. Very, very, very pleased to be here tonight. I'm juggling all sorts of buttons here tonight. We didn't get a grant from the government this year, so we're doing everything on our own. I'm delighted that I've got my son here with me, Sam, who's controlling the cameras. I've got my dad and Matthew here at the church, who's helped plug a lot of this stuff together tonight. Absolutely delighted and indeed honoured to be here in this wonderful church where I was an altar boy, a cross-bearer. Mum worked and ran the bookshop for many years and really was the centre of the community and towers across the town, and it really is very, very special, as I say, to be here tonight. Very, very grateful to a number of people, particularly Reverend Kelvin Price, and I'm delighted that we've got a very, very short message from him, actually. I'm not delighted it's short, but I'm delighted that he's given us one, I should say. So I think we'll just cut to that and go from there.
And everybody, I'm really sorry I can't be with you today. Unfortunately, my diary is just gridlocked, especially as we're now coming out of all the restrictions we've had and life's moving forward. But I wanted to give you a quick message. One, I just hope it goes really, really well. And two, I love the work that you're doing at St. Lawrence's. The idea of family and being a family in the community is the most important thing that we do as church and as Christians. I know that when we look at any family, we always look backwards, don't we, to our heritage. And just like grandparents and parents and then children, we have so many people that we have to thank from who have, if you like, gave us the baton that we hold today from their hard work, which has happened in the past. I know, Nick, your mum at Di Corston and your dad, Peter, were such baton holders in the past that have enabled my ministry today and the ministry of those who I work with, my colleagues, both ordained and lay, to have a better chance at success in Ludlow. Well, for St. Lawrence's and St. John's, and I know a lot of the other churches in Ludlow, we do want to come together to create not just a spiritual and religious footprint in the town, but also to improve just a social and economic footprint for all people. Because we do believe no matter what people's faith is, no matter what corner they come from in life, we just want them to flourish and to know that God loves them and that they have purpose and identity. And the more we work together as a big family, the better that will be. And so I hope that we can continue to work with you again in the future, and I know the wonderful work you've been doing down at some of our schools. They think it's amazing, and I hope that your summer is a great success and that you take away from this a message which is encouraging, and we all know that if we play our part, we will make a huge difference for what it is to be a family at home, in our workplaces and our community at large. God bless you all. Take care. Bye-bye.
That was lovely. Thank you, Kelvin. Very, very grateful for that. And it's wonderful to see how the church has been redesigned, reconstructed, taking away the rigid pews. And in fact, it's now a much more flexible space to reflect the multi-purpose use of this. This church is going to be the centre of the community in the way that it has been moving forward. And I know that's very much Kelvin's ambition for the church moving forward. So absolutely delighted that we were able to hold this community event. It's not a secular event in any way. It's an event for the community, by the community, not just here in Ludlow, but across the country. We've got people logged on at the moment. If anybody wants to put a message in, I've got a screen here, so when you log in, I can see if you want to put messages up. If anybody wants to come into this event and contribute, then we can open a Zoom room. So we've got lots of options. I've got lots of buttons to press, but we can make all that work, I'm very, very sure. So that's what we're talking about tonight. We're here for the art of dads and a celebration of parents, not just dads, but mums, creative carers, all sorts of people. I'm also very, very grateful to Ludlow Fringe, Anita Bigsby, who is the director, the managing director of the Fringe, who asked me to be the patron of the Fringe a few months ago, and I've been absolutely delighted to work with them and bring whatever I can to that. We've done a few events in Castle Square. We ran a 3-day Glastonbury festival at Your Glasto in Ludlow Primary School, and also in the Castle Square, which is absolutely lots of fun, as you saw in the video at the beginning, hopefully. Absolutely wonderful to be able to work with them. And also to put a programme of events together. I don't know if you saw this, the programme that was there, but we actually ran 10 different events over this period, over the week. The art of cardboard, where we had cardboard modelers and creatives. The art of festivals, where we talked to people running festivals, including Festival 22, which is the big national creativity festival next year. And we also are running the art of skating, the art of dads, the art of all sorts of things, the art of bikes, hopefully this weekend as well. So really great to be able to do that with Anita and her team. It's as I say, not just about dads, it's about all sorts of people really, and thanking everybody as appropriate. And I'm really very keen to use this moment to thank the organisations that have made this tour possible. I'm on an Inspired to Learn tour at the moment. I've got a camper van outside, which you might have seen. And the organisations that made that possible, most significantly at the moment, is the Inspiration 4 mission. That's basically a SpaceX mission that's going to space in September, led by a chap called Jared Isaacman. He is a dad, a 30-year-old dad. He's a tech entrepreneur in America, and he has paid to fly a rocket to space in September for Elon Musk, and with Elon Musk's team, SpaceX. He's donating £100 million to a children's hospital in New York to fund research into children's cancer. And is also fundraising aggressively for other causes as well. And is an incredibly generous person, incredibly generous team. So we're very, very grateful to Jared for funding and providing sponsorship, along with an organisation called LGFL, London Grid for Learning it was called once, but it's now the local Grid for Learning, whatever you want it to be, because it's a national Grid for Learning. It's an organisation that funds and supports technology and creative technology in schools. Started in London, they're now rolling out across the UK. And the other organisations, obviously a little bit more familiar to a lot of people, are, of course, the Arts Council, get my buttons right, Arts Council England and the National Lottery, who gave us a COVID emergency grant last year to enable us to buy a lot of the equipment that we're using today. We've actually upgraded it since then, which is why it's a little bit of a juggle. And also the Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, who provided us with what's called a Culture Recovery Fund grant to enable us to do this activity, and we're very, very grateful to them and all organisations. And anybody who pays £1 for a lottery ticket, this is the sort of stuff you're paying for, as well as sports activities, as well as tennis courts down there on the Linney, as well as other youth services around the country. It's all being funded by the National Lottery through your pound. So very grateful to Inspiration 4, LGFL, National Lottery, Arts Council England, and the Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sport as well. And I have to say, to be quite honest, that this event today wasn't necessarily my idea. It was inspired by somebody I was at school with, somebody who put a photo on Facebook a few months ago, and I don't know if you knew I was going to see it, but that's this chap here, Kevin Mumford, who I was at school with in infants and junior school. And I think his mum was a dinner lady, was she? Mrs. Mumford? Oh, Mrs. Mumford rings a bell, so I think she was a dinner lady. And that photo absolutely blew me away, because for me, that photo represents family. It represents a proud dad who has clearly done a lot of spannering on that grass track car. It represents a very proud mum who's at the back, and I don't want to get into stereotyping, but mums and dad there are the team for Kevin in his car there. It really is a super sight to see. It really is fantastic, and just wonderful to see that car there and that family so proud with Kevin holding that trophy. And tragically, just after I saw that picture, Kevin's father passed away. And his body, the coffin, was carried through London on a Lloyd's of Ludlow lorry. And I know it was a very poignant moment, and Mum and Dad went down to see that. And I was delighted, actually. I was wandering around the brewery the other day, and I found a whole warehouse full of these lorries. It looks like Mr. Lloyd keeps very, very busy preserving lorries and keeping lorries in his yard, so I'm sure Kevin had quite a choice for that. But it's just wonderful to see a community come together to celebrate the life of a man, a father, as I say, whose son, whose work, whose family really inspired tonight, because it's not about me. Tonight is not about me. It's not about my dad necessarily. It's about you and your dads and your mums and what we call creative carers. Creative carers are people who care about creativity, about children, and about all our futures. And I'm very, very confident that there are going to be many Mumford families out there. Kevin now, I think, is a granddad. I did talk to him about possibly being here tonight, but he's on the road, he's a trucker, and he's very, very busy and couldn't guarantee where he was going to be. But very, very special. I'm very grateful to Kevin and his family for letting me use that photo, because I think it's absolutely priceless. And it's interesting, I don't know if anybody saw Grayson Perry's Grayson's Art Club, but he made a car which for him symbolised Britain and the old Britain, the old industrial age Britain, and how Britain's rusting and corroding a little bit. And really for me, in that photo there, I saw an element of Britain's crumbling past, but how we have to invent the future. Sam, can you do me a favour? There's actually a flag. Can you see that flag from your camera there? Probably not. No, you can't. Don't worry. There's actually a crumbling Union Jack in the corner, actually, which I thought was quite poignant. You can probably just see it on the screen there, actually, just in the back there. That's actually the crumbling ensign from HMS Ludlow, which was a battleship in World War II. Can you see it from there, camera? It's sat in that camera, so I don't think you can. No, you haven't quite got the side to it there, don't worry. I think you can see it on that shot there, just in that top right-hand corner. But for me, we've got to look forward, not back. We are leaving the industrial economy, and we are entering the connection economy. And the future is about connections. As Seth Godin has said, it's about Airbnb is about connecting people who have a house with somebody who needs a house. eBay is about connecting somebody who wants a widget, a mouse, or a computer with somebody who's got one. It's about connections. And the connection economy, for me, is all about art, because art connects. Art is what we call it when what we do might connect us to somebody else. Art is creativity, tools, and people. And tools could be technology, they could be cardboard, they could be cogwheels, they could be Lego, whatever. It's about that verb, it's about the product you create with, and it's about people. It's all about people. And that's really what I'm talking about here today, particularly at this Art of Dads event. Now, as I say, this is not an event just about dads. Mums are involved as well, you'll be glad to know, and other creative carers. There's my mum, she's in the audience down there. Hello, Mum. It's a wave. She'll probably tell me off for having that. And there's Dad as well. 5 years ago at Ludlow Primary School. In fact, I think this would be a good time to get my dad up, actually. Do you want to come up, Dad? Can you come and grab a seat? Do you think? I'd like to say big round of applause for my dad, but 10 people, I don't think it's going to really cut the mustard, actually. Oh, there we go. Can you grab that microphone? Do you want me to get it for you? There we go. Brilliant. You can take your mask off now, actually, because you're on the crew. You're allowed to take your mask off. And I can see Patrick on standby and Homer. I can see you both guys, so that's good. Turn your screens widthways if you're on V-calls waiting to come on. That's brilliant. And then we've got you good to go there. Fantastic. Thank you very much. We'll come to you in a moment if you could bear with us. So There we go. So that's Mum and Dad on that day that I described in Ludlow Primary School when we ran a Steam Code Day. We borrowed an electric car from somebody living nearby. We brought an electric car we built in our Steam Code Day. That's the happy photo of that day. Any thoughts about that day, Dad? Do you remember that day when you came up to Ludlow, to the primary school? Turn your microphone. There's a switch on the front. Just a switch just there. Yeah, slide that forward. No, here. That should work.
As you may well realise, technology is not my strongest suit these days.
Hang on a second. Why can't we hear you? Hang on. Try again.
But Nick, with his Steam Co. charity, has met all sorts of people. There's a billionaire who lives near here apparently, and he borrowed this electric car. If people ask you if you like a ride in an electric car, think twice about it. I think it's something like 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. And I really thought it would take off. It scared me to death. Probably won't go in another one. And that was an experience. It was an experience.
Don't tell everybody that, because the chap who I borrowed it off might be watching now and realise that maybe I did go a little bit faster than I should have. What do you remember of that day when we were up there in St Lawrence's Ludlow Primary School up on Clearview? Do you remember much of that day, and anything strike you?
It was nice to see all the school was working with Nick. Excuse me, my throat. But no, it's okay. But working with the school, each class was doing its own separate artistic work, and part of that was a special roller that rolled the fuselage of a rocket, and then people built the tail end to that as well. So eventually one of the sessions was actually building their own rocket, and Nick in New York, I think it was, found this thing about these pneumatic pressure that could send these sort of homemade rockets up quite high, and some of them blew up, but the kids had great fun out of it. Some of them went very, very well, but the biggest laugh was Nick's, because he has a little explosive charge that sets off his special rocket, and it goes up so high, I tend to lose sight of it. But the kids roared their heads off when the parachute came down with the rocket and got caught in a tree. And that was the best laugh they had all afternoon.
We actually had a fairly professional rocket maker on duty that day. There's Mum making rockets, look. Remember that, Mum? Remember making rockets? I haven't actually told anybody. I use that photo quite a lot, but I haven't actually told anybody that it's my mother, I must admit. But I often say to people that I'm just a dad. Just a dad. And people say, you're not just a dad. Well, whatever. I always remember this headline. That's a photo of Sam and Jessie, actually. It was in The Guardian a few years ago. And I was particularly chuffed to be in that particular issue of The Guardian, because a hero of mine was also on the cover, Ricky Tomlinson, actually, who was a member of the Shrewsbury, I'd like to say the Shrewsbury 7, but a bunch of people who were imprisoned for trade union activities. But what I don't tell a lot of people about on that particular newspaper is that the heading was, "I just talk quickly till people say yes." So I think if I'm going to do one thing today, it's actually going to be to thank everybody who has responded to when I say yes and gone along with the plan. I'll keep talking till people say yes, and I do know when a no is a no. Sam's zoned out on his music, I think, but not to worry. Do you want to keep the camera on people who are talking? That's the brief, there we go. Okay, so I just talk quickly till people say yes. Now, my journey, this whole project for me was inspired by three things. The first was a TED talk by this chap. The second thing was reading half a book, and the third thing was going to a festival. The first thing was a TED talk by this chap, Ken Robinson. So Ken Robinson, whose TED talk talked about how creativity is as important as literacy. Now, to a lot of people, that demeans literacy, and it brings it down to, it brings creativity, it brings literacy down to where people perceive creativity to be. What Sir Ken meant was that creativity should be as important as literacy, because literacy is absolutely critical. But one has to also remember that some people who can't read can never read, that creativity is more important. So we have to remember that it is as important. The second thing for me was reading half a book by this chap, Professor Guy Claxton, What's the Point of School?, which I think is one of the most important questions of our time. And it's a question that many people addressed during lockdown. We had an opportunity to seize that and to address it. We did and didn't to a certain degree. And the third thing that happened was I went to a festival. Camp Festival, fantastic festival run by Robbie and Josie DeBank, which is a family-friendly kind of Glastonbury, really, for Guardian readers, a little bit like me, where they have activities like the Science of Music, which is all sorts of fun. I used to love this photo of Sam, who's probably cringing now, but on the water well. This is 10 years ago. The awe and wonder in his face of that bicycle wheel turning when he put water on those paddles to turn it around is just wonderful. And we thought, how do we bring this back to our children's schools? So we started running STEAMCO Days, which were mini creativity festivals, where we got the whole community involved. We gave the children a passport and a lanyard, and they had free reign of the school to go and do whatever they wanted, and they really did go for it. We had outside artists in and inventors and makers. We made junk items. We did splash painting, fantastic creative activities, making flotillas of boats from pieces of paper, animations from zoetropes. We didn't use apps for that. Ukulele. Somebody told me that a head teacher once told me that she uses ukulele to spend on her pupil premium funding. So she gets funding for children who are on free school meals, and she spends it buying ukuleles and ukulele lessons, and has academic proof that the academic achievement of those children is raised because they play ukulele. So we have to remember this. This is not just a nice to have for the sake of it. These are things that really do benefit children. And I've got 20 of those in my trailer. We do improv. And we've got the dads in. This is Professor R. Richardson, who's a dad, a friend of mine at school now, who's Professor of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Royal Institution. And he came in alongside a graphic designer there, rolling up newspapers with a special machine that we borrowed, and made a chair that we could sit on, and newspaper engineering as an activity was born. All the children made little bits of bunting, simple bits, complicated bits. We wrap those around the school and totally decorate the school. And that's what we call a STEAMCO Day. We do like rockets, and you're going to be hearing a little bit about rockets tonight. We make paper rockets, as Dad said. There's the launcher there that I went to New York. I just happened to go to New York to the United Nations, who were launching a global STEM summit. And while I was there, I went to the World Maker Fair, and I got this launcher, and it's changed my life, as is something else that you're going to hear about today. The great thing about rockets, the great thing about that launcher is it gets the dads in. That's Mango, who's a landlord at the pub just down the road from where we were living. But he dragged a bunch of dads from the pub down as well, because they all wanted to make, they wanted to compete, they all wanted to get involved. And that's what STEAMCO is all about. Engaging community, to come into schools, to work with children, to work with teachers, to work with children across the school, not just their own children and not just the children in their own groups. We made an electric car one year, believe it or not, with a little bit of sponsorship from Ford, and we raced that at Goodwood. We do coding activities, and we work, and we're inspired by things like the Matisse exhibition in Tate Modern. There's my wife there doing a project, and famous creators. We want to get famous creators in schools, like Dominic Wilcox here, famous inventor. And we were shortlisted for a Times Education Supplement Award 5-6 years ago. Goodness me, I'd forgotten all about that. And what we're doing is we're wrapping everything up. The vision, the mission is to put everything you need to run these days in that little trailer that you see there, and drag it all around the country. And I've been dragging that around the country now for 5 years. And this year I want to get 3 of those on the road to prove that it doesn't just take a nutcase like me who can get all this wiring together to make this work, but to prove that we can make this scale. Because next year the government have a National Festival of Creativity. The government have allocated £120 million to a National Festival of Creativity and Innovation. They've chosen 10 organisations that are getting £10 million each. Sadly, we weren't one, and I'm not surprised, because I've never had £10 million in my bank account before. But we did put a team together with people like Ironbridge Gorge Museum, with people across England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. And we've still got that team. And what we're going to do next year is we're going to run a project which will be a grassroots project to complement the national project, which some people call in the Festival of Brexit, which I've got no time for. If the money's being spent, let's make sure it's spent well, whether you voted for or against Brexit. This is not a time to be divided, it's a time to unite and come together using the power of art and creativity, as far as I'm concerned. So next year, the mission is to put 22 of those on the road. And I'm launching tonight an appeal to raise £2 million to put 22 of those on the road with 22 people like me, and to run a festival at Ironbridge Gorge Museum, the centre, the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, so that we can inspire our communities, inspire our children to be creative, to rise from the ashes of COVID, if you like, to rise from the ashes of the Industrial Revolution, to seize the opportunity of the future. So that's what we're talking about today. That's my goal, and that's really what I'm looking for. Tonight is about three things. The art of dads is about three things as far as I'm concerned, and they're the three greatest gifts that anybody can give a child, whether it's your own child, whether it's somebody else's child, or whether it's children in your community. And that is quite simply some time, some stories, and give them their art. Their art is something that they're going to be passionate about, something that might help them feel like they're in their element, something that might help them make some money, help them make some friends, help them make the world a better place one day maybe. My dad gave me these three things many years ago on an old bit of film he had. You'll see this captured here. This is me when I was 1 with my first ever train set. Oh, I've got a bit of film now. Let's have a look. It doesn't want to play. Not to worry, we'll have to get that back sometime. That train set buzzes around. I'll get that back later. I'm not going to waste a minute finding that at the moment. I should have found that. That's a bit strange. I'm thinking. It played Kelvin's video. It didn't play that one. Think. Interesting. Okay. Come back to that. So there's a video of me and my dad with a train set running around. We'll get that working. I show that in schools all over the country now because children get so excited when I say I've got a YouTube channel. The fact that I've got my dad's old film on that is one thing. So that's what we're talking about, and time. And that's what we talk about when we talk about being a dad. My dad and I don't pretend to be the best dads in the world. It probably is one of the toughest jobs, especially when you've got a job. Dad, we talked about this last night, didn't we? I asked you, well, I said to you, this is not about you being the best dad and me being the best dad, and neither is it a time to sort of wallow in self-pity or whatever, but you made that film when I was 1. We didn't have smartphones, we didn't have VHS. Tell everybody about that film and how you made that.
A guy at work had a really nice Canon cine camera, and I thought, I'd like one of those. And I wrote off to a firm in Torquay, and instead of offering me a deal or whatever, they sent it. And I said, you'll never send this back. Trouble is, a month's wages, so it did come a bit hard. Excuse me. But I did thoroughly enjoy doing it, making titles and things for it. And I think not sure if it was when Nick or Richard was born, but I know I've got a nice piece of it where I stood all their cards up, and then a little model engine just gradually knocked them all down again. I got great pleasure doing that. I never used to think I was very artistic, so perhaps I've got something in it, I don't know. Di's the artistic one. But what I do like to think I've helped in my way, especially I'm allowed to talk about Rocket Boys? Not yet. Well, I'm stumped now. But I think with a cine camera, or whatever you use these days, you can involve the family. Di used to say, oh, let's get a move on. I said, look, let's make a decent job of it, so it's something we would want to look at in years to come. And I got a lot of pleasure out of it. And many years later, I had a DVD made of all my films. Both the sons had one, and we've got one. I don't suppose you ever look at it, do you? Where is it? But
there you go, there's the film. Silent, of course.
Nick thinks I was creative because I showed him how to build a bridge.
Well, that's what I do. I show this film to kids, and I say, did you notice how my dad showed me how to make a bridge? And I ask, how did I make a bridge? And you get all sorts of answers. You usually get with your arm, with your hand. You sometimes get with bricks, with iron, with wood, which is quite exciting. So the kids are actually using their imagination. They're not taking it too literally. But then I tend to look at the whole class, the whole, and often I got anything between 200 and 700 children. I did it once for children from early years to sixth form in a girls' school, so 1,200 girls. And I look the audience in the eye and I say, I'll do it with you guys. I know you've got masks on. I used my thank you, Mum, imagination. Bit of audience response. I use my imagination and tell the children that imagination is such a gift, and it's like a muscle. You have to use it, otherwise you will lose it. Where's my clicker gone? I mean, being a dad is not the easiest thing in the world. I mean, how was it for you, Dad, being a dad? That challenge and juggling your other commitments, juggling a job. I mean, you were busy in the community. Do you think you were a good dad? Do you think we suffered because you were so active in the community?
I think at the end of the day, does a dad know he's a good dad? Does he know what he's doing? Or do things come naturally? I'm not sure it's good thing. But there's always a difficulty when Nick and Richard were young. I was sort of working full time, and so Di was the stay-at-home mum, so she had more influence and was with them more than me. She said, I remember coming down here with the boys. I thought, I never did that myself. But I had my times, and I think, I like to think the boys remember some good bits. Do you remember any good bits?
Well, it's funny actually, because I remember you making railways for us, model railways. You used to make lots of model railways for us, didn't you? But because you did shift work, we'd come home and you'd do it at work on nights, wouldn't you? You'd make things at night, they just magically appear. But Dad, I mean, you've described the difference between, well, the way that the family unit was. Mum did what she did, you did what she did. Here's a picture of Grandma and Grandad. How does your parenting and compare with theirs? And in fact, their upbringing. I mean, Grandma had quite a tough upbringing, didn't she?
My grandma was born in a very small town in Norfolk, and she had a really hard time. And things in those days were either good or bad, but she survived. And I remember going around. We used to bike everywhere in those days. Think anything of biking 15, 20 miles to go and see all our relations. But again, that's all part of the family. But wasn't she brought up with a whip on the table almost? Well, there's all sorts of stories, but she had a hard life, and she reflected that all her life as well, I think. And I know that the family was very always seemed loggerheads. Never had a good word to say to anybody, and everything was very secretive. So I said to Di, I am not going to be secretive with our boys or anything like that. Now she says I say too much. So you can't have it both ways, I suppose. But,
and just to keep my mum happy, there's a picture of my other grandma as well, with a giant in our drive, actually. So being a dad, I mean, that film really sort of captured it all, and none of us are talking about perfect dads. I'd actually quite like to try and bring somebody on. I can see that a chap who I've got the utmost respect for is waiting in the wings, and that's this super chap here. And I'm just going to have to put my glasses on because I've got lots of buttons to press. This isn't Zoom, and it's not quite as easy as Zoom. But let me just have a quick juggle here and click there and do that. And right. Okay. This is the $1 million question. Patrick Otley O'Connor, can you hear us? can't hear you. That's my fault. Hang on a second. Hold on. It's me. It's me. It's not you. It's me. It's not you. Sorry, Patrick. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Oh, gosh. Hang on a second. Oh, I know exactly what's wrong. Try again, Patrick. Sorry. Speak.
Okay. I can hear you very faint. I can hear you. I was listening through the interview so far with your dad. It's been lovely, even though it's quite faint.
Sorry about that, Patrick. So we're quite faint coming to you, are we?
Yeah. But it doesn't matter. I can hear as long as I stop between and listen to you. I'm cool.
We can hear you perfectly. So Patrick, you've always struck me as, I don't like saying this, but a bit of a super dad. You know, I mean, you're tweeting every night what you're having for dinner. You've got all your boys. They all, if you're late from work, they cook dinner for you. You know, what's the secret? Come on.
Well, definitely not super. I talk a lot about well-being. I do tongue-in-cheek call myself a well-being supermodel. But that is a tongue-in-cheek phrase. And the reason I use that is I try and model trying to struggle with life as people do. Because people quite often look at head teachers, my role as a head teacher, into my 17 years ahead, and think that you either got to work all the hours that you're given at the expense of the family, and that's just not the case. So spending time with my family in the evening. So tonight I'm actually bereft of the boys tonight. I've got 3 away to a wedding, one down in Sheffield and one upstairs doing his college work. But I'm still at home cooking, ready to eat later on after this show. So I think just living life and trying to show life to people with all its issues is what I do. When you said about giving time, I think that's absolutely right. Time is that precious gift you can give. So my paid work at school, I put the time in. Equally, I squeeze the pips out of my family time as well. So Mel, my wife. Together we do what we can do with our children. So as we're growing up, the football, the swimming, the gymnastics, the tennis, whatever sports and clubs are very sporty boys. But we also, as teachers, we're able to spend our time travelling. And travelling's a real passion for us as a family. And I'm pleased to say the boys have just taken that on themselves as they've got hold of themselves as well. So
you're a head teacher by day, dad by night. So tell us about your family. You've got 4 boys, isn't it, as well, which is an extra handful. 5. 5. You counting yourself there, or 5 offspring?
No, I'm the 6th boy, and then in fact 7 if you include Hurricane the tortoise.
Oh gosh, yeah, your tortoise is an internet celebrity, isn't it? You're a head teacher. You have a central role in the community as such, and a lot of people are going to look to you. What advice would you give to somebody who is struggling as a parent, as a father, a mother, a parent, a carer? If somebody really was struggling, say, look, I've got this job, I'm struggling, I can't compete, I can't keep up with everybody else with all the new trainers and the apps and all that. Do you ever find yourself giving that advice to communities and people in your community?
Advice might be a strong word, but actually, I suppose conversations with families to allow them to see the issues at home for what they are and to own themselves and maybe help them explore how to solve and do something about them. So see, own, solve and do something about their own situation. Yes, we do. A lot of families struggle. All families struggle. Any family that says they don't struggle is really lying. And that could be the Instagram style family that you referred to earlier. I think it's important to do that, and people can see that's the case. We've all had children, I'm sure, that have not done as well on a test as they should have done, or they've been ill, or they've crossed over the line. I mean, children are expected to step over the line boundary-wise as they get older. That's part of growing up. That's what you want your children to be able to do as they become great independent people themselves. And I think modelling the struggle is important. I know as a young dad growing up, I remember when Quillan, who's now 17, at school, I'd just taken some paternity leave. and there were two colleagues in school who were critical of that quite openly in the staff room, and I actually overheard
what was said.
So I had a conversation with them. I took them aside to have a conversation
to say
that
it's
it's okay to have a conversation with me, but I don't really want that conversation to occur in front of other colleagues, because
we should be
encouraging
the male
teachers at school
to be the
dads that we want our families to have.
We want
our children at school to have dads who engage. So we should model paternity. We should model flexible working and support that if that comes through. We should encourage parents to take their, or dads to take their parenting equally. So it's not just mum who takes the time off work to take the child to the hospital. Dad as well will take the time off, or they'll rotate and share that childcare between them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, isn't it? These challenges, and I personally think that you have got one of the toughest jobs in the country as a school leader. I coined the phrase #brave school leader, not for the obvious reasons, but because I went to a primary school in Sunderland, an amazing school, incredibly creative, and I said, how are you doing this in the current context? Because creativity is under a lot of pressure in our schools. 9 out of 10 schools have reported cutting the arts, according to BBC and our school research. And the head teacher there, Steve Williamson, said to me, Nick, Ofsted are clear. They value creativity, but it takes brave school leaders who understand the value of art and creativity in schools, because they know that it gives kids academic uplift across the board. They know it makes that school a happier, better place, and it benefits the society, the community around that school as well. And I don't know if you'd agree, Patrick, but I do what I can to advocate for head teachers and people such as yourself. How has lockdown been for you and your colleagues? Because I personally feel you're misrepresented. It's like an iceberg. People see and judge the bit sticking out of the water. They don't see the bit below the waterline. Could you give people a flavour of your year?
For me, the role of head is a slightly different perception to that. Nick, I think my role is a real privilege, and I might sound to say that, but a real privilege to be able to lead a school, and my role is captain the ship, is to point the direction we're going, our moral purpose, our direction, our values-based vision of where we're going. We need to be able to take the staff along with that, the students and the families, as we go forward, and keep us on that track. And again, what I would say is any captain can steer a ship in calm waters when things are going well. But when you have rough waters, or tsunami that is the pandemic, that can take you off course. And the one thing we do have is that compass and moral purpose that keeps us pointing where we're going. So you said a curriculum that really embraces and celebrates the arts. And the arts in its widest sense. If that's what we're about, that broad and balanced curriculum, putting those things central to where we are, because many students just love and thrive in those cases, and that's what we should do. We've been stopped for a variety of reasons, which has been frustrating during the pandemic. For example, with music lessons, singing children not being able to sing indoors because of the potential spread. So singing outdoors at times now we're allowed to do those things, or getting back into doing those sort of activities is crucial. And we're using arts as our way, as part of our recovery out of here. So a conversation today with my head of arts in school around different pieces of wall within school that we have a variety of artists in residence, if you like, that we'll bring in for a period of time to work on murals or 3D sculptures, etc. To really embrace this period coming out now during this summer term, but also into the autumn term as well, to use arts to help our recovery. It's not about catch-up, it's about recovery. And recovering some of that the bereavement that we've had, the bereavement is not just around people that we may have lost. It's around those lost learners, around those lessons, or that freedom, or that passion that we've come through the arts. And that has been a bereavement that we've been through. So actually rediscovering that and liberating members of staff and students to refine that is, for me as a head, a real privilege to do. So I found my job wonderful. You won't hear me complaining about the pressures of headship. I'm paid to make decisions, and that's what I need to do. But again, if we have a strong moral purpose we've all bought into, it makes the job very easy.
No, absolutely. I've just been told that we've got an audio echo problem at home, and we had this last night, and I'm baffled because we tested it earlier and it wasn't an issue. Patrick, I'm sorry about that. I'm just a little bit distracted. So really, do do you feel that, I mean, there's a lot of talk in schools that teachers are leaving education, head teachers are struggling with it. What's your advice to them? Because I know well-being is a massive issue for you.
My first piece of advice I give to all staff. My first day when I was in North Liverpool, you came to see us there. When I was in North Liverpool, my first day, I said to all staff together, picture of me and my family, my wife, and the 5 boys was up there on the wall with a phrase that said, "Look after yourself first before helping others, so we can make the biggest difference for the children." When I started where I am in Bolton now, West Horton, in September, we're in the middle of a pandemic, with all sorts of priorities and chaos going on. I used exactly the same slide. The first time I spoke to all staff. Look after yourself first before helping others, so you can make the biggest difference to everybody else, and create this culture of care, and a real culture of care within school that we've achieved with a variety of things we've done, using that as a phrase to begin with, to allow us to drive things forward as a school. In fact, only 3 weeks ago now, just before half term, a young trainee teacher ran to me as I was walking out to the car at the end of the day and just asked me a question. He said, "Can you give me one piece of advice as I'm sort of entering the profession?" And I used exactly the same quote. So the thing I'll say to you is, look after yourself first before helping others, so we can make the biggest difference to our children. And he said, "Thank you. I'd heard you said that. I just wanted to hear you say that. I've not spoken to him." And he burst into tears. And he said, I'm sinking. I'm struggling. So we had a quick conversation around how he can take time to reconnect with his passion. A musician. And an artist. Right. And he'd not been drawing, and he'd not been singing. So I set him some homework that night. And then since then, he takes at least one night off now per week where he leaves school as soon as he can and goes home and draws. And his homework is to come and show me what he's been creating. And he came just to see me just the other day. In fact, maybe Monday or Tuesday this week, he popped his head in my door before he went home, just to say that conversation has changed my approach to teaching. And that is just gorgeous. And that's the privilege of headship. Just that one conversation, that one point of prioritising and helping and pointing that young man in the direction he wants to go. That could help create a really long, sustainable career. Since I started my teacher training at the same age as him, 37 years ago, I wish that someone would have said what I would have said. And that's really about, when I talk about being a supermodel, it's about me modelling that behaviour. I was walking out of school and I got a trainee following me. I was leaving before him. I work hard, don't get me wrong. Of course I do to do the job I do. I'm model this idea. You can walk out, you don't have to be the last person leaving, and you do those other things. And that's the real reason why I tweet cooking the food, the running on a morning and a weekend, to show that you make time to look after yourself. Whatever your passion is, and I think we said that before, is follow your passion. And I'm a big believer in teachers following their passions and sharing their passions with students. In fact, in the school, not this particular school, but probably 2 schools earlier, we introduced a thing to try and reintroduce that to the curriculum called our passion projects. And Wednesday afternoons we changed the curriculum round so that members of staff, teachers, support staff, everybody, office cleaners would work on that afternoon. Whatever their passion was with students, let students opt into that passion to develop. So it could have been around chess, it could have been around campcraft, anything, and just allowing children to find something that turns them on. It's part of the problem we do have at the moment is with families. The stories you shared before about your dad and the other ones you've seen and your friend that his father passed away. And I know with my mum and dad who were big cyclists who took me out doing those sorts of things. Some of the children now don't have that. And the Xbox or PS is there. Entertainment. So actually introducing things that may turn them on to become their passions for life. I think it's an important thing that we can do in schools.
What is your advice, Patrick, to families, parents who are really struggling with this elephant in the room, which is tech, which is games machines, it's phones? What's your advice to parents if they say, look, we just can't cope, the kids are up all night? You've had 5 children to practice. Had they invented mobile phones when you had your first child, out of interest?
No, not at all. The eldest is 28 and 17, so they might have been invented, but I didn't get one until I was probably the latest people I know of my age to get one. But and don't get me wrong, we have Xboxes, the kids have phones, we have the tech and so on. But actually getting them involved in something that takes them away from that. So it's very hard to send a text when you're scuba diving. You don't get reception when you're on top of the mountain. So the outdoor pursuits things that we do are important to us in terms of where we go. And what we do while we're there, the photography we can take, we use the tech for our advantage to photograph the things and be mindful of the things that we're noticing. Maybe that's what we do. But in terms of with families, during the third lockdown, in fact, the January until March lockdown this year, we introduced into our teaching because it was online, it was on Teams. We had some detox days where we said to families that we're taking the students offline. We gave some suggestions, but we asked the parents, if you're at home lockdown as well, go for the walk together. Go and see this. Try this. Do these challenges. Do the things. We engage families to do that. Many families joined in with the baking challenges, creating really sort of bake-off style masterpieces, or the sporting, creating new tricks, not just juggling a football, but learning new tricks yourself, or doing things, or creative. These the old mousetrap game where you set a ball going, it skittles over. We did some of those sort of challenges as well for people to be creative and go encourage families to join in with those things as well during lockdown, again, just to try and inspire that connection that we need. And in terms of the 5 ways to wellbeing we talk about, there are 5 big ways around mental health for adults and children. Teach 5 a day being a thing you've seen me tweet about many times before. It's about being connected or staying connected and reconnecting, which is great for our well-being. It's noticing and being mindful of our surroundings and the things we do. The exercise that we have, volunteering and helping others is a big thing we encourage, which is great when we do things for other people, and also learning new skills. And they can be learning really big skills, or it can be something as simple as learning to use a yo-yo, or learning to use a whatever. But again, important again, and we sent packs home to all our staff and students and wellbeing packs with during lockdown, posted out to everybody that's home. 1,450 envelopes landed on doorsteps, and inside them were little Freddo frogs. So we got a chocolate bar and a little mindfulness colouring book and some pencils. But there was also some origami paper and some origami, so we could learn to do that, and some hints and tips around some exercises you might be able to do in the garden, a little 10-minute routine you could do in between the online learnings, and all those things again for family and for students to do, and the adults, the teachers as well, and all the support staff. Just great to keep people's minds going in those ways. So I suppose inspired by modelling and by making things accessible. We don't need grand gestures sometimes. It's just simple things that we try and play with.
Well, I mean, there's just in the last few months, it pops up every once in a while. It's popped up again this week, actually, and that's the issue of phones in schools and tech in schools and the whole behaviour issue. I mean, what are your thoughts about that? And I mean, Gavin Williamson, the Education Secretary, actually sent out a poll the other day, or questionnaire. Please tell us what you think about phones and behaviour in our schools. What are your thoughts about that, Patrick?
I thought that without being political, it is political, I suppose. I thought that may be a bit of a red herring. We're looking at isolating and bubbles bursting and all sorts of things at the moment. And mobile phones are the least of our worries in some respects. I embrace the use of mobile phones for some activities, and I leave the staff to manage that. We have no mobile phones out for students to use around the building. That's a distraction per se, and that's again the rule. I've inherited that as I've walked into the school. We do allow them in classrooms. It's around. Again in arts, we do GCSE photography is a good example. So your phone's out, we're using cameras, but we're also using the phones to go take the shots we want them to go and do. We want them to take pictures of the work. In fact, we're using Teams, and the students have got the phones and these things to access and upload their homework. So we use them, but we use them in a positive way in the classroom. So some simple rules around behaviour management are when you're not using the phone for the teacher-directed task, it's down flat on the desk so you can see what's happening. So it's not under the desk having a play.
So would you say that you're actually teaching good use of those devices then, and accepting their role in society, and encouraging young people to use them appropriately and as and when?
What you said.
Sorry,
absolutely.
That's one of those questions. Do you agree with me, Patrick?
It's all right. I'll take it. Absolutely. Next question.
Fantastic.
You spot on, Nick.
I think what concerns me. Go on.
We want children to be self-regulated. Being just saying self-regulating on its own is not good enough because kids can abuse that. And of course they're going to do. You're giving them to take them out in some respects. I get that as well. But teaching responsible use and knowing if kids misuse, we've got to have some sanctions in place. If somebody is misusing that in the classroom and they are texting or they are doing some of the things they shouldn't be doing, the student may lose their phone for a period of time, etc. But I think an out-and-out ban, unless there are major issues that it's really become a significant issue in a school to help rebalance a school, I think an out-and-out ban is a difficult choice to make for a school, I think, where we are. But again, that's my view. There are many schools who have banned them and you function really well without them. There's plenty of time for children to use tech elsewhere, and we have tech in school to use, so we use iPads in school, or we restrict in some other ways. Have equally led a school where every child had an iPad and it was free use, and we wanted students to, we wanted all learning to be done in those ways. But if you'd have banned tech in those schools, the curriculum would have collapsed.
Absolutely. I think the thing for me, to be honest, is I personally, you said it's not get political. I personally feel that it's not necessarily party politics, it's policy politics. And I think we have to be prepared to discuss policies that affect our kids, our schools, our teachers, our leaders, and our communities without necessarily citing party politics. There are good things about both parties.
I think that's a better way of phrasing that as well. So I think politics does have a place in our debate, and it's important we do so. But not the. I think the latest announcement, which is where we start this conversation. I think there was a red herring.
Absolutely, and I think my big concern is that there are people playing politics with behaviour, with phones at varying times, and I think they're actually fairly potentially divisive tools, deliberately divisive tools to divide people, to get people arguing, to get people squabbling, and I think so much has been weaponised. I mean, Michael Rosen called it a few months ago, the whole behaviour thing in schools. But I mean, describe the behaviour, and just very quickly, Patrick, I know we need to wrap up with you, but talk to me about behaviour in a school, this whole agenda, exclusion, isolation, zero tolerance, soft love or whatever they call it. Talk to me about that sort of agenda.
Yeah, well, I'm. It's a big debate on Twitter. The things that people do say and become polarised. I think where I sit as well, I do exclude children. For the spent time in the school and bringing down the exclusions. Looking much more about inclusion, restorative conversations, and not just about punitive exclusion. If the sanction needs to be there, it must be followed up with a tremendous amount of love and support after that. So if a student, two students fight and they want exclusion, when they're back in school, the restorative work that goes on with them and then with peers, etc., is the important part of it. And with that, we're managed to drive down the need to use those exclusions. But I'm not a zero exclusion person. I don't have a sin bin. I don't have a place where I sit children against the wall and look in cubicles and do those things. I've worked in schools like that. But I don't. That's not a style I use. We have where I am at the moment. We've during the pandemic, in fact, I started in September. We started in September with we employed 4 members of staff for our behaviour team. Who have an area of school now where these conversations occur with students with real significant need. And need love and embracing inclusion rather than exclusion. Some of those children have had exclusions, but to bring them back into where we need to be, and I have an ex-police officer, a behaviour specialist, social work. The people that you'd want to bring in, we have in school now almost just shy of a full-time external counsellor who works with school. We've increased our pastoral team. We've doubled the amount of leaders, the heads of year, if you like, for each year group. So 2 of those members of staff to actually increase that wraparound care to avoid the need to exclude. But that's not a zero tolerance. I don't exclude anybody. It's not a zero tolerance of behaviour that I exclude and kids walking in silence on the left-hand side or whatever.
Yeah,
that's the way we've set things up. The ethos and the culture of care, which comes back to again pointing the direction. It's very easy to make decisions going towards the culture you're trying to create.
Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. you are a breath of fresh air. People like you just take it in your stride. Brave school leaders, a dad of 5 boys, a school head teacher. I mean, you are taking it in your stride. It really is. It's a joy to see, and it is really quite incredible. Thank you very, very much for joining us tonight. I'm really sorry. We have got some more.
I'm just going to go back in the kitchen to finish off cooking now.
And then tweet your photos and sort of shame everybody again tonight, aren't you? I know what you're like.
You'll see a butternut squash with some chilli inside and a bit of guacamole and stuff tonight. I think that's what's. I've got some stuff in the oven.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Patrick. It's great to see you again. Cheers, mate. See you soon.
Great event, Nick. Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So Patrick Otley O'Connor there from up there in Lancashire. We have got audio problems at home again. We had this last night, and it's weird. It's fine in the room, and it's really bad at home. So Stella Onions has just flagged that to us, which is very much appreciated. I'll get rid of with Patrick there. So what I'm going to do, I think we could do a bit of a comfort break, and we'll get Homer Hickam on. Does anybody want to stretch your legs for a minute? I've got a guy, tech support, trying to help me here. I just need to get the audio. It sounds fine here, but outside it's echoing. So I just need to resolve that. So if you could just bear with me for, I think we have a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back. Thanks.
The fun, the excitement that we have making flying rockets in schools is to be seen. We're all born artists. The problem is to remain an artist as we grow up. That was Pablo Picasso. And I think we've got to help our kids, all our kids, aim high in life. Not just high, but higher than high. We've got to help our kids find their passion, their art. So I'm Nick Corston, I'm just a dad, I'm co-founder of STEAMco, one day maybe I'll be the CEO, I don't know. So STEAMco is a non-profit community enterprise that helps connect our kids with their art and our communities with their schools by running creativity days. And we want to get the whole community involved. We want people who've had kids, not had kids, got kids, whatever, to come and work with us to help us run these days. What inspired me? Well, I saw a talk by Sir Ken Robinson. I read half a book called What's the Point of School, on what we should be teaching our kids. And I went to Camp Bethel, which is really a Glastonbury to kids. And I thought, I want this in my kids' school. I've got a lovely little film my dad gave me of me when I was 1 and him with my first ever train set. And I show that to kids in schools all over the country. And how my dad gave me the greatest gift. He gave me my art. Because art is what we call it when what we do might connect us to somebody else. So art could be painting, it could be photography, it could be cooking, it could be coding, it could be dancing, it could be design, it could be DJing, it could be robots, it could be rockets. The fun, the excitement that we have making and flying rockets in schools is to be seen to be believed.
This is the best day of my life.
This truck contains everything you need to run a creativity festival in a primary school. 30 coding kits with a BBC microbit. We've got rocket making kits. We do cardboard challenge. We can do we've got t-shirt printing machines so we can print I Love Art t-shirts. So the kids design their own logo, take a selfie. We've had thousands of posters of those done. That's with JR, French street artist JR. So we've got communities all over the country designing I Love Art logos, taking photos, and we sent them off to JR. He's printed 1,000 of these off for us, which we're fly posting all over the country. In lockdown, we've got an Arts Council grant, and we built a green screen TV studio. We've been live streaming events all summer. We did a 3-day Glastonbury event where we built a half-size pyramid stage from cardboard and code and ran 3-day events. We had Martin and Gary Kemp. We had Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols on stage alongside community artists, dads and their kids. And we had a young lad from Leeds called Lenny who played his piano on stage, all virtual. And that's what we want to do. Lockdown is not going to lift in a hurry, and we're running festivals from spare bedroom here in Paddington, but we need people involved. We want people to collaborate for creativity.
For me, collaboration is everything.
Elton John gave me the greatest gift. Actually, he made a film, I don't know if you saw it, with John Lewis, where basically he tells the story of how he was given a piano as a kid and worked hard and made literally a million. I saw that film, ripped it off, put our own subtitles on it, and Elton John retweeted it. It had 50,000 views in an hour, and I went on a 2-week UK tour from Cornwall all the way to Carlisle, showing that film, showing my train set film, talking to kids about art and creativity, letting off rockets, and inspiring schools across the country in our 12 days of Creative Christmas tour.
You've inspired one little boy in particular, very quiet boy, and as that rocket shot into the air, we heard the words blast off, mountains.
Innovation, technology, and dreams rocketed up to the sky.
The state education system, we have a lot of people feel it's been narrowed and narrowed and narrowed, focusing on teaching and testing of highly academic subjects, which are important, which are right for some kids, but it's not for everybody. And some kids come out of the education system literally broken. 9 out of 10 schools have reported cutting the arts in somewhere or another, which is a real tragedy. And we're going to lose that cutting edge creativity that made Britain so famous. Creativity is Great Britain after all. The ideal future for me would be a whole load of these trucks on the road with passionate, enthusiastic, committed, creative people, helping connect kids with their art and communities with their schools all the way across the UK. As Albert Einstein said, imagination can take us anywhere.
I would like to have steamed cold day in my class.
We're all born artists. The problem is to remain an artist as we grow up. That was Pablo Picasso. And I think we've got to help all our kids aim high in life, not just high, but higher than high. We've got to help our kids find their passion, their art. So I'm Nick Colston, I'm just a dad, I'm co-founder of STEAMco, one day maybe I'll be the CEO, I don't know. So STEAMco is a non-profit community enterprise that helps communities with their schools by running creativity days. We want to get the whole community involved. We want people who've had kids, not had kids, got kids, whatever, to come and work with us to help us run these days. What inspired me? Well, I saw a talk by Sir Ken Robinson. I read half the book called What's the Point of School? On what we should be teaching our kids. And I went to Camp Bethel, which is really a blasting for kids. And I thought, I want this in my kids' school. I've got a lovely little film my dad gave me of me when I was 1 and him with my first ever train set. And I show that to kids in schools all over the country. And how my dad gave me the greatest gift. He gave me my art. Because art is what we call it when what we do might connect us to somebody else. So art could be painting, it could be photography, it could be cooking, it could be coding, it could be dancing, it could be design, it could be DJing, it could be robots, it could be rockets. The fun, the excitement that we have making and flying rockets in schools is seen as we believe.
This is the best film of my life.
This truck contains everything you need for a creativity festival in the primary school. 30 coding kits with a BBC microbit. We've got rocket making kits. We do cardboard challenge. We can do the egg drop. We've got t-shirt printing machines so we can print I Love Art t-shirts. So the kids design their own logo, take a selfie. We've had thousands of posters of those done. That's with JR, French street artist JR. So we've got communities all over the country designing I Love Art logos, taking photos. And we sent off to JR. He's printed thousands of these off for us, which we fly places all over the country. In lockdown, we've got an arts council grant, we built a green screen TV studio, we've been live streaming events all summer, we did a 3-day Glastonbury event where we built a half-size pyramid stage from cardboard and code and ran 3-day events. We had Martin and Gary Kemp, we had Glenn Matlock from Sex Pistols on stage alongside community artists, dads and their kids, and we had a young lad from Leeds called Lenny who played his piano on stage, virtual. And that's what we want to do. Lockdown is not going to lift in a hurry, and we're running festivals from spare bedroom here in Paddington, but we need people involved. We want people to collaborate for creativity.
For me, collaboration is everything.
Elton John gave me the greatest gift. Actually, he made a film, I don't know if you saw it, with John Lewis, where basically he tells how he was given a piano as a kid and worked hard and made literally a million. I saw that film, ripped it off, put our own subtitles on it, and Elton John retweeted it. It had 50,000 views, and I went on a 2-week UK tour from Cornwall to Carlisle, showing that film, showing my train set film, talking to kids about art and creativity, letting off rockets, and inspiring schools across the country in our 12 days of creative Christmas tour.
You've inspired one little boy, very quiet boy, and as that rocket shot into the air, we heard the blast off, mount.
Innovation, technology, and dream rocketed up to the sky.
The state education system, we have a lot of people feel it's been narrowed, focusing on teaching and testing of highly academic subjects, which are important, which are right for some kids, but it's not for everybody. And some kids come out of the education system literally broken. 9 out of 10 schools have reported cutting the arts somewhere or another, which is a real tragedy. And we're going to lose that cutting edge creativity that made Britain so famous. Creativity is Great Britain after all. The ideal future for me would be a whole load of these trucks on the road with passionate, enthusiastic, committed, creative people, helping connect kids with their art and communities with their schools all the way across the UK. As Albert Einstein said, imagination can take us anywhere.
I would like
problem is to remain an artist as we grow up. That was Pablo Picasso. And I think we've got to help our kids, all our kids, aim high in life. Not just high, but higher than high. We've got to help our kids find their passion, their art. So I'm Nick Corston, I'm just a dad, I'm co-founder of STEAMco. One day maybe I'll be the CEO, I don't know. So STEAMco is a non-profit community enterprise that helps connect our kids with their art and our communities with their schools by running creativity days. And we want to get the whole community involved. We want people who've had kids, not had kids, got kids, whatever, to come and work with us to help us run these days.
It's magical.
What inspired me? Well, I saw a talk by Sir Ken Robinson. I read half a book called What's the Point of School? On what we should be teaching our kids. And I went to Camp Bestel, which is really a Glastonbury for kids. And I thought, I want this in my kids' school. I've got a lovely little film my dad gave me of me when I was 1 and him with my first ever train set. And I show that to kids in schools all over the country. And how my dad gave me the greatest gift. He gave me my art. Because art is what we call it when what we do might connect us to somebody else. So art could be painting, it could be photography, it could be cooking, it could be coding, it could be dancing, it could be design, it could be DJing, it could be robots, it could be rockets. The fun The excitement that we have making and firing rockets in schools is to be seen, to be believed.
This is the best day of my life.
This truck contains everything you need to run a creativity festival in a primary school. 30 coding kits with the BBC Microbit. We've got rocket making kits. We do cardboard challenge. We can do the egg drop. We've got a t-shirt printing machine so we can print I Love Art t-shirts. So the kids design their own logo, take a selfie. We've had thousands of posters of those done. That's with JR, French street artist JR. So we've got communities all over the country designing I Love Art logos, taking photos, and we sent them off to JR, and he's printed 1,000 of these off for us, which we're fly posting all over the country. So,
1, 2.
in lockdown, we got an Arts Council grant, and we built a green screen TV studio. We've been live streaming events all summer. We did a 3-day Glastonbury event where we built a half-sized pyramid stage from cardboard and code and ran 3-day events. We had Martin and Gary Kemp. We had Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols on stage alongside community artists, dads and their kids. And we had a young lad from Leeds called Lenny who played his piano on stage, all virtual. And that's what we want to do. Lockdown's not going to lift in a hurry, and we're running festivals from a spare bedroom here in Paddington, but we need people involved. We want people to collaborate for creativity.
I think they're doing fantastic work.
1, 2.
For me, collaboration is everything.
Elton John gave me the greatest gift. Actually, he made a film, I don't know if you saw it, with John Lewis, where basically he tells the story of how he was given a piano as a kid and worked hard and made literally $1 million. I saw that film, ripped it off, put our own subtitles on it, and Elton John retweeted it. It had 50,000 views in an hour, and I went on a 2-week UK tour from Cornwall all the way to Carlisle, showing that film, showing my train set film, talking to kids about art and creativity, letting off rockets, and inspiring schools across the country.
1, 2. 1, 2.
Our 12 days of Creative Christmas tour.
You've inspired one little boy in particular, a very quiet boy, and as that rocket shot into the air, we heard the words blast off come out of his mouth.
Innovation, technology and dreams rocketing up to the sky.
The state education system, we have a lot of people feel it's been narrowed and narrowed and narrowed, focusing on teaching and testing of highly academic subjects, which are important, which are right for some kids, but it's not for everybody. And some kids come out of the education system literally broken.
1, 2.
9 out of 10 schools in Britain have reported cutting the arts in some way or another, which is a real tragedy. And we're going to lose that cutting-edge creativity that made Britain so famous. Creativity is Great Britain, after all. The ideal future for me would be a whole load of these trucks on the road with passionate, enthusiastic, committed, creative people, helping connect kids with their art and communities with their schools all the way across the UK. As Albert Einstein said, imagination can take us anywhere.
I would like to have steamed cold day in my class.
One, two, 1, 2. Well, I'm really sorry we had some technical issues there. We were struggling to solve them. We've had technical support on it, and we don't think we can solve it particularly well. I think we are operating now. And we have got Homer Hickam on standby, I believe. And I'm going to try and get him to join us if he's still available. We have actually run a little bit late, and he may not be able to manage it now. So in just a couple of minutes, we'll see if we can get Homer Hickam on. But he was travelling, and I know it's not ideal for him. If you are able to join us, Homer, give me a sign.
Hey, Nick, I'm on the road. Let me just find a place to pull over. Can you hear me? Nick, can you hear me?
Hello, Homer. You're driving.
I'm just stopping. Can you hear me?
Hang on a second. I just need to turn you up. Hold on. Can you turn your phone widthways, Homer? Is that an option?
And but there you go.
Fantastic.
That all right?
That's perfect.
Okay.
Are you safe to do this driving, or are you a passenger? I'm trying to work out which side of the road you're on.
I've stopped. I pulled over.
Fantastic. Homer Hickam, thank you for joining us this evening. We had a couple of technical issues with the audio, which we sort of resolved. But I'm here in Ludlow, in Shropshire, my hometown, in St. Laurence's Church with my father, who found that book all those years ago in the Oxfam bookshop that he was volunteering in at the time. Is your microphone working, Dad? Do you want to speak? Say hello.
Hello, I did speak to you a few years ago, and it was a great privilege. I worked in an Oxfam bookshop for about 10 years and saw this book, Rocket Boys, and I thought, shall I buy it and shall I not? And I waited a long time, but then I bought it. And I can honestly say it's one of the best books I'd ever read. It was so interesting, especially the boys building their own rocket in the States, blew their mother's front garden up and kitchen scales and everything else, and then eventually fired a rocket that went 6 miles in the air. It was phenomenal.
Well, hang on, Dad. You're talking about it as if it was somebody else. It's actually this chap who's on the screen at the moment, Homer Hickam.
And one of your rockets did go into space. I understand.
Yes, I had a little piece of one of our rockets that we built back in the coal fields of West Virginia. Actually flew into space with Dr. Takao Doi, a Japanese astronaut. So a completely international mission. But I'm certainly glad that you found my book and read it. And of course, Nick has taken the message and done some great things with it.
Homer, does that sound familiar, that story, as my father described it? Was it? Did you really blow your mum's fence down? Because that's what I've been telling children all this time.
Yes, until her dying day, she never forgave me for blowing up her rose garden fence. But so I had a whole lifetime to try to make it up to her. I don't know that I ever did.
Fantastic. We're here tonight talking about the role of, well, we're calling it the art of dads, but it's not just about dads. It's about mothers, it's about communities supporting their young people. Talk to us very briefly about the support, the encouragement of your parents, because the story I tell is your mum had one perspective, your father had another. I mean, what are your memories of your parents and how they encouraged you?
Yeah, well, of course, I think I had great parents, both my mom and my dad. But my dad loved the coal fields of West Virginia. He loved coal mining, and he really wanted me to be involved with that, to become a mining engineer and work with him. My mom, though, saw that the coal mines were dying and that I'd better get out. So I fell in love with space after seeing Sputnik fly, and so hangs the story.
And you had a very, very successful career with NASA, I believe, didn't you?
I did. As a matter of fact, I still have a little bit to do with NASA. I'm on the board at the Space and Rocket Center, and saw your friend Jared today. He's the Inspiration 4 leader, and he said to say hello. And
Are you kidding me? Are you serious?
No. Yeah, I'm serious. Yeah, that's where I was today.
Well, next time you see him, you give him a fist bump from me, Homer Hickam, because Jared Isaacman has made this possible with his support. So they're down at Space Camp, I think, aren't they today? Those guys? Is it
yes,
Space Camp?
They were at Space Camp today, and I spent all morning with them, and then I had to cut out because I needed to talk to you, Nick. So and that was fine. We'd had a long day together. It was a good day. So we hope that that's going to be a great mission, and again, great crew, and certainly he was very impressed by what you and the Steam Company does.
Well, that means a lot to hear that, Homer. That's made tonight's hiccups more than worthwhile to know that people like you are talking about me across the pond. Homer, just...
Oh, yeah, we talk about you. Don't worry.
That's good to know. I hope it's all good. Homer, I mean, SpaceX is just a remarkable story, Elon Musk. I mean, yesterday didn't they take a launch to 10 seconds from countdown and have to abort at T-minus 10 seconds? What happened there? How does that happen?
Yeah, it was 2 days ago. They had a helicopter wander into the launch area by mistake. So they had to cancel and wait. They only have a certain window of opportunity to launch. So they had to wait 24 hours. But SpaceX and the Falcon rocket is very reliable, and so off they went. The next day, 24 hours later, no problem.
Just remarkable, isn't it? I mean, what are your thoughts around Elon Musk? I mean, how would you describe him and what he's doing, what he's achieved?
Well, I've known Elon for a long, long time, I guess 20 years or so, and before he really started SpaceX. And he's always been a dreamer and an entrepreneur. He's willing to risk his last dollar on his ideas, and so my hat is off to Elon. He's doing things that NASA probably wouldn't even try.
And is that good or bad? Is that good or bad? That's a good thing, I guess, is it?
It's very good, very good.
It's interesting because there's a fantastic TV series a radio series on at the moment about Elon Musk, and it describes how he literally read every book in the school library. He had such a thirst for knowledge, but also the aptitude to do something with that knowledge, didn't he? I mean, it really is quite a story.
Well, it is, Nick, and the fact is that I think just about everybody, all students, could be like that, and they have to be encouraged to read and to find a passion in their life and then look for a book or a TV show or something that will give them more information. And so what you're doing is fantastic. You are causing young people to think about the future and to imagine themselves doing things like Elon has done, or maybe like those boys in that coal town in West Virginia did. So my hat is off to you. Congratulations, and all the success in the world.
Homer, I can't thank you enough. I always think that just when we saw that Starship trial and it crashed, and you said rather nonchalantly, it had a rapid disassembly, but don't worry, they'll do it again next week. I honestly...
A rapid, unplanned disassembly, yes.
Unplanned disassembly. As far as I'm concerned, what Elon Musk and those guys are doing with SpaceX isn't a million miles from what you were doing there in Colwood. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Homer. Thank you for your support for the ideas of our Rocket Kids Club, which I think with you, with Jared, and some of the people you know, I think we could make a real thing this year, next year, the year after, because I think our kids need this inspiration from people like you. Thank you so much for joining us, Homer, and we'll be in touch.
Well, you're welcome, Nick, and be sure to tell the students that even though these companies are in the United States, in fact, they're international companies. There are a lot of UK engineers and technicians who work for SpaceX and Blue Origin and all the other United Launch Alliance and all the other companies over here. Plus, there's some great British companies, aerospace companies coming up, also in Australia and New Zealand. So this is a very exciting time to work in the space business.
It really is a global industry, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Indeed it is.
Thank you so much,
All right,
Homer.
well, signing off, and thank you, Nick.
And a big thank you and a goodbye for my dad as well. I didn't realise he's got a signed copy of your book. It's not just any old copy of Rocket Boys, it was signed.
Highly privileged. Good night, Hiram. Good night.
Thank you very much, Homer. Good night, and thanks for your time. I know you're busy. Goodbye now. Cheers.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Homer mentioned there, let me just get rid of that, Jared Isaacman, who is a SpaceX astronaut, a commander of the Inspiration 4 mission, who've sponsored us to be here today. And really, really grateful to him, really grateful for Inspiration 4 support. And to think that Homer Hickam was at Space Camp today in NASA talking about us and this project with Jared is truly wonderful, isn't it? Really, really good. Dad, do you want to go? I know you need to stretch your legs a little bit. I'd like to actually get somebody up who I bumped into in Castle Square the other day. Thank you so much for coming up tonight. And I just want to have a chat with Andy Onions, actually, who had an Elon Musk t-shirt on the last time I saw him. That's great. Thanks. No. Andrew. So we were up in Castle Square the other day, making rockets, jumping around, and somebody came over, sort of loitered at the side with an Elon Musk t-shirt on. It's hard to imagine it's the same person all dressed up, rather smart tonight. And it turned out it was somebody I was at school with. Andrew Onions, or Andrew as I knew you then, but I think your mother calls you Andrew now, is that right?
I'm not sure this is working.
Is it switched on? I think it is, don't worry.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we are, because there's a lag. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, my wife was watching the internet and she's following.
Okay, is Matthew around? Do we know? No? I've just got to go and clear that error on the computer that's ran by the organ, I think. So, Andy, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to since I last saw you.
Well, I'll start off how I actually went to go and see Nick. My wife was watching a video online and, the events of the festival and whatever. And she saw Nick was on doing rocketry up in the town square. And she called down to me and said, "Do you know Nick Corsten?" I said, "Yeah, went to school with the guy in the same year." So I just popped uptown as is, and I was wearing this Elon Musk t-shirt. And, Nick noticed the Elon Musk t-shirt straight away. He obviously is a fan, I am. And he asked about it, and I said that he knew me, I knew him, and gave him the name, and he does know me indeed. So that's how I came about. And then, as Nick says, he just talks very quickly until people say yes, and he was talking very quickly then. And he mentioned there was an event tonight up in the church, and he said, would I come along and go up on stage? And I said, yeah, okay. So that's why I'm here.
And here you are. I've just managed to reset the error that was occurring on the screen above there. So do you remember those days? I mean, we went to, did we go to the same junior school? Did you go to St. Lawrence's?
I went to St. Lawrence's, but I was only there for a year, something 9 months or something like that.
Right.
And then I went up to Clee View, which I guess is the same as you.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant,
yeah,
really.
But mainly, I know you from the grammar school, of course.
What are your thoughts of our education from those days, and what school was like in those days, the sort of things we used to go up to?
I think the junior school, when they amalgamated the two schools in the town up into Clee View, which is right up on the edge of town, I had a very good teacher there, and very influential, and I had a good education up there. I had to stay for a second year, despite the fact I was in the top year of the school. I was in the top group in my class and whatever, but I was made to stay a second year in that school, despite the fact I could have gone on to, the upper school at this time.
Made to?
I spent 2 years in the 4th year at that school. Yeah. Then of course it was selective back in the day, and we did 11 pluses and whatever. And Nick and I ended up at the grammar school. The grammar school and subsequent education, the sixth form college, which was essentially on the same grounds, and then on to university, I think represents one of the absolute best free school educations it's possible to get in this country. It was stunning. You know, the gamut of the subjects that we studied, and just the depth of the education that we got was absolutely amazing. It wasn't, I can't think of the word all of a sudden. It was very cerebral in a way, and that suited me, of course. It wasn't vocational, that was it. And of course, some people learn by seeing and copying or whatever, and other people learn in different ways. So it certainly suited me very well. You know, I would say I had a fantastic education, and it was free, of course.
And how are your children being educated? How have your kids been educated? How are they being educated now then? Did you manage to replicate that in the schools that you're using now?
You know, I'm in some respects, I'm quite the joker in the pack here tonight. I've gone a completely different route for my children, and they have been home educated from day one up until right now. The two young guys in the front of the audience here, and they've basically had what's called an autonomous education. And this is a complicated way of saying they did what they liked. So although they were home educated, the autonomous element of it meant that they could choose to do what they wanted to do and study what they wanted to study. And there was no curriculum that we imposed upon them, or anything that we thought that they had to learn and needed to learn. And they've basically learned what they've wanted to learn in the intervening 16, 18 years that they've been around. So it's been completely different to a normal schooling education with a normal curriculum. And they've learned completely different things and different skills and things. And this education, it hasn't been all cooped up in the house and sat down formally or anything like that. It's completely the opposite, very free sort of education. They've been to homeschool camps and things. They've been to, weekly they used to go to a homeschooling event where there were about probably 50 or 60 people there, at least 30 kids, all being homeschooled or whatever. And every week they'd meet up for 3 or 4 hours and just play, chat, interact, do artwork, you know, anything that they wanted to do, they just did, you know. So it's not as though, as I say, they've not been isolated at all. They've gone out, they've communicated with people. One of the first questions you get asked about home education is, how do your kids socialize? You know, they never go to school, they never talk to any kids and things. And the reality is, they socialize very well because they've always interacted with different age bands. In school, you're in your own age group and you interact with your own age group. And you might meet younger or older kids in the playground or something, but generally speaking, you only ever interact with the same group of people at the same age. Whereas my son and daughter have interacted with people from literally little kids, you know, literally toddlers, well, babies even went along, so from toddlers up to 18-year-olds or whatever. So they've interacted with different age groups all the way up the scale. So I would say they're reasonably, you know, socialized, you know, they get on with people, you know, they can talk to you, it's not a problem, you know.
When we met in Castle Square, you had your Elon Musk t-shirt on, and you were almost foaming at the mouth with enthusiasm about what he's doing. And I concur with your views. Talk to me about Elon Musk and what you think he's up to and the significance of what you think he's doing.
Okay, right. We're going off on a completely different tangent, I suppose. Elon Musk, to my mind, is one of the... I think he's certainly one of the most influential people on this planet at this moment. I think he is the most influential person on this planet right now. He has set up and run many successful companies. I mean, he started off in the day with a company called Zip2, which was basically like almost like Google Maps or something like that, where businesses would have entries in essentially a sort of online yellow pages setup. Loads of people said, no, you'll never make a success of this. And in fact, one company they went to try and sell space to picked up the yellow pages in America. It was 2 inches thick, and threw it at him and said, you'll never replicate that. And of course, online, you know, it's been replicated. The yellow pages now, if you've ever seen one, it's, you know, around here it's 1/4 of an inch thick. You know, there's nothing left. You know, so you know, his critics are many and mostly wrong. He's then gone on to, he set up a finance company which would accept payments and online payments. And this was back in the day, very early on. And he eventually sold that company out to PayPal. Sorry, it was called PayPal. He sold it to eBay. And with that money, he made a lot of money doing that. And the sort of money that most people could just go and live on a beach, retire, do nothing for the rest of their lives and live very, very comfortably. But he chose to put half of the money into a space company and the other half of his money into an electric car company. All his mates basically said, Elon, you're stupid, you're going to lose every last cent of it. But he did it regardless, and he's made a phenomenal success of both of those companies. So the car company now is called Tesla. It's the most valuable car company in the world. It's worth pretty much the rest of all the other car companies put together. It's astounding. It's not based on what it's doing right now, obviously. It shouldn't be anything like that value. It's based on what it will do over the next 5, 10, 15 years. A lot of people are saying that electric cars will displace petrol cars, diesel cars in the next 15, 20 years. My view is the inflection point is going to be this decade. I think we'll have 50%. This is if the other manufacturers start making EVs. I think we'll have the inflection point will be this decade. I think it's earlier than most analysts think. The other main company, of course, is SpaceX. This is a startup rocket company. He started it 20 years ago, 2002, 19 years ago. He's gone from nowhere to, you know, it took 4 years, I think, to launch his first rocket. And then that was just a single engine rocket. It was 20 meters high, fairly small. The minimum sort of size rocket that you could build and launch and get into orbit. He was the first person to get a liquid-fueled rocket into orbit. Off the strength of that, NASA gave him a contract to service the International Space Station to supply you know, the resources that they require up there, you know, food, scientific experiments and things like that.
Check that out.
He built a larger rocket off the back of that. And this larger rocket, I don't know, the total height of it must be 220 feet. And it's 12 feet across, so 3.6 meters across, 70 odd meters high. Put that in perspective, it would fit in the space behind me. It would go through the roof because it's 15% higher than the tower. It is humongous.
And that's the whole rocket?
That's the whole rocket,
the whole thing, the launcher? And
yep. It's a two-stage rocket, so the first stage is a booster. It gets you, I don't know, 20, 30 miles up, 50 miles up probably. Then the second stage takes you sideways very, very fast and keeps you in orbit.
I've got a little story to tell about that, actually. So Homer just then mentioned Jared Isaacman, who is a tech billionaire in the US who has a company called Shift for Payments and the inspiration for rocket launch. And I saw a video on Twitter of his rocket going across the desert, apparently. Somebody said, this is Jared's rocket. And he said, yep, that's my rocket. And I was a bit cheeky because we're trying to raise funds for SteamCo. And basically, I made this film and asked Jared if he knew anybody who'd be interested in supporting and sponsoring us.
Check that out. That's a stage 1 rocket for a SpaceX Falcon 9. Possibly even for the launch in September, October of the first ever privately crewed flight, the Inspiration 4 launch. And it's given me an idea because we're looking for 3 sponsors for a mission of our own. I mean, why should Elon Musk and his mates have all the fun?
And there are many heroes that have made these history-making programs possible, not just, the astronauts, but the scientists, the engineers, the researchers, and the countless other visionaries. The crew members that are here with us today share Haley's passion and dedication towards adventure, exploration, and inspiring others.
My father worked at the NASA tracking station during the Apollo missions.
I'm just a dad with some cool tech and a few green screens, and I'm launching an appeal to help all our kids aim high. I'm passionate about creativity, and I've decided to dedicate the second half of my life to inspiring kids with creativity and to collaborate with our brave school leaders who look beyond the walls of their school for ideas and inspiration, like Mr. Dyson up there at Parklands Primary on the Seacroft Estate in Leeds. He let us build a cardboard Tracy Island and then fire a 200-foot cardboard rocket off. How on earth were we going to beat that? Well, another brave school leader, Mrs. Nelson at Joseph Cash Primary in Coventry, let us build a cardboard Coventry Cathedral in her playfields. The cathedral is a powerful symbol of rising up from the ashes, rising against adversity, being positive, being optimistic and having hope. We're appealing for help today to take this on our Inspired to Learn summer tour. We want to set up our Coventry Cathedral in school playing fields across the country and our green screen studio in assembly halls to live stream our Aim High assembly to their community. We'll then help them run a day of creative activities with rocket making, coding, inventing, designing and making before a real dynamite rocket launch to send everyone home buzzing at the end of the day. Will you help us inspire all our rocket kids to aim higher than high?
Sorry, Andy, I just had to play that because that's the film that I made on the back of a film I saw of his rocket. And overnight, Jared and Inspiration 4 signed up to be one of our sponsors. So it just felt appropriate that something as big as that was on a lorry and there was the film. And to think, as Homer said, that they're actually virtually talking about us over there today, which is wonderful. So Elon Musk is a very special character. He's moved mountains. I mean,
he has. I mean, he has some of the best brains on the planet working for him. There are must be, I don't know, 10,000 people working for SpaceX. They are the creme de la creme of American engineers, mainly. It's tricky for Brits to go and work for him. There are certain military restrictions that make it difficult for Europeans, certainly, to go and work for SpaceX. His car company does about 80,000 people, and somehow he motivates these people to do incredible work. People at SpaceX are working, I saw somewhere today, the average was 50 hours a week. There's people there working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. And they're not on, the greatest pay. They're on good pay, but most of them are working for the mission. SpaceX's mission isn't just, get some rockets up there, take people to space station. It is to make humans a multi-planetary species. The aim of SpaceX is to get people to Mars, colonize Mars, and have a city of 1 million people there by 2050. There aren't many companies or people on this planet with those sort of ambitions, but Elon Musk is that person.
So 1 million people
1 million
in
people.
30 years' time.
30 years' time.
That is quite phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I bet Elon Musk hasn't done, and that's build a model of Ludlow Church, St. Lawrence's Church, out of cardboard, and that's certainly what, we'll get Sam to get the camera around in a moment. I know we're just about to finish, in the last few minutes, but I'd just like to show you this before Mum and Dad go. So, what we've got here is Darryl Wakelam, who's the most incredible cardboard modeler. Is it launchable? That comes out. That just comes out as a prop. But if you can see that beautiful model that Darryl made for us, as part of our Art of Cardboard event last week, because as I say, art is what we call it when what we do might connect us to somebody else. Could you hold that for me a second? Thanks. And art is about creativity, it's about tools, it's about technology, and in that case, that technology is cardboard. Sam, do you want to just zoom in on that again? But it's creativity, it's tools, it's people that make what we're doing also special. And using a little bit of technology, we've made a little film here for everybody here in St. Laurence, everybody in the community of Ludlow, everybody across the country, to inspire our kids to aim not just high, but, as I say, higher than high. And this is the end of tonight. I'd like to thank you for joining us. We had a couple of technical issues, which are always unfortunate, and I totally regret that, and I'm sorry. But to think that Homer Hickam was there in America, he's been with Jared Isaacman today, talking about what we're doing here tonight means a lot. The fact that I've reconnected with an old friend from school many years ago who's done the right thing by his kids, home educating. This film is for everybody who's doing their best as a dad, as a mum, as a carer, what I call a creative carer, people who care about creativity, children, and all our futures. Thank you for joining us tonight. Really grateful, and hope we'll hear from you all again very, very soon as we continue our work. Thanks. Good night.
20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.